Over the next few weeks, the unions vote on the deal, which swaps transformation in the way public services are delivered for a promise of no further wage cuts. But what exactly is in the deal? Now, first, what do public servants get? Well, they get no further pay cuts, at least until the deal ends in 2014, no compulsory redundancies, and a review in 2011, which may lead to some of the pay cuts being restored. And those earning less than €35,000 will be prioritised. What about the other half of the deal? What do public servants give? Well, they have to accept no restoration of pay cuts this year, changed work practices to cut overtime and allowances, and that includes an extra hour per week for teachers and a core 8 to 8 working day for nurses, more flexible redeployment of staff, and public service numbers to be reduced by 2012. Now, tonight we have union representatives who have very different views on the deal. Making the case for a yes vote is the new General Secretary of the Primary Teachers Union, the INTO, Sheila Noonan. Sheila.
Now more than ever, workers and their families need protection. That's the job of unions. This agreement offers that protection at a time of chronic economic difficulties worsened by obscene bailouts for bankers. It does give certainty on pay, jobs, pension and the restoration of pay cuts over time. It provides for no further cuts in public service pay, despite clear warnings of further substantial cuts to public spending. It can protect public services, a concern not only of public servants but of every citizen. And it also offers the prospect of industrial peace and some financial stability to workers struggling with reduced family income. This agreement is a strategic, protective strategy for workers and no more than that. But that is important because ordinary working women and men are fearful for the future, and that fear is heightened by a government that has done nothing to reverse the devastation of employment, protect homes or stem the downward drift in wages. The agreement gives us the time and space to work on a better, fairer, long-term agenda. We forced government as employer into talks facilitated by the Labour Relations Commission. There is a very tight line between those who support and oppose the outcome of those talks. There is now time to consider it and for workers to pass their verdict. If accepted, the job of unions will be to see that government keeps its word. If government reneges, then any deal is off. I do not pretend that this agreement offers a panacea for everything, but I do believe it to be the least worst option at this unique time.
Sheila, you're making the case for a yes vote, but you had a hard time persuading your own delegates to go along with it, a tiny margin. Well,
I don't think that's entirely surprising. In fact, we had two hugely constructive debates, and as I said here, very little dividing us, but at the end of the day, the decision of the executive was endorsed to send it out with a recommendation. A decision not taken lightly and not just taken on the back of Croke Park, but people who have watched it very carefully for the last 15 months, have not been afraid to take strike action when necessary, have not been afraid when to go into talks, and at this juncture absolutely wanted to go out to a ballot to members and give all our members
Your
an opportunity.
message, though, to your members tonight is the least worst option.
It is a unique agreement for these times that we are in. All of us as trade union leaders find ourselves in a huge challenging position with respect to our members, but I fundamentally believe my responsibility is to provide as much protection at this point in time.
All right, Sheila, for the moment, thank you. Now to put the case for rejection of the Croke Park deal is the head of the Unite Trade Union in Ireland, Jimmy Kelly. Jimmy.
We live in strange and difficult times. The issue at hand is €1 billion in pay cuts for public sector workers. €1 billion that provides real spending power to sustain jobs and benefit everyone. According to the government and its supporters, the country cannot afford this. And yet, an investment of 20 times that in a bank that will never yield any benefit to the country is seen as affordable and manageable. For real people living in the real world, these two figures don't make sense. The government pay cuts on public sector workers affect every citizen of this state. The 15% reduction in take-home pay imposed over the last 12 months has a serious knock-on impact through reduced tax revenue and consumer spending. Every shop, every business, every citizen feels that reduction. We went into talks with government in recent weeks to secure a deal where that money is put back into circulation through the economy via restoration of pay to public sector workers. The government is already seeing a fall in revenue on its own budgets. The economy is starved of cash flow and locking workers into a failed strategy for 4 more years, as the current proposals seek to do, and will make things worse for everyone. The majority of those affected directly by the cuts are on low to middle income salaries. When they get money, they spend it on food, on clothes, and real economy activities. The government has asked for trust and reform. Reform can only be delivered once trust has been re-established through the reversal of the pay cuts. Until that is part of an agreement, we will ask our members to act in their interest as well as the country's interest by rejecting a deal that sees $1 billion in real economic contribution as too much, but claims that $20 billion in bank bailouts is okay.
Okay, Jimmy, thank you very much. What we're looking at here, though, is if there's a no vote, what next? That's what people want to know. What happens if you get a no vote?
I think what makes sense to people watching this programme is the contrast of those two figures, 1 billion versus 20 billion. 1 billion for public sector workers versus 20 billion for banks. Now, we've tricked and tracked our way through the past number of years where bankers, spivs and speculators were absolutely given a platform to make sense. They brought us to where we are. Now public sector workers or private sector workers shouldn't pay. And what we do is we judge after the ballots what action is appropriate to force the government to do what we need to do.
The Minister said he's not returning on this, on the pay cuts. They are not going to be restored in the current year. Yeah. He's saying, give us something back and we will think about restoring it if the figures add up.
Yeah. And we're saying there's no trust in existence. What they've done at the end of last year needs to be put right, restore that trust and talk decently to working people in the public sector.